The $2 humiliation. Victor Thornwood's fist slammed against the mahogany conference table so hard the water glasses jumped. His face had gone crimson, that dangerous shade of red that meant someone was about to get destroyed. $2, he roared, his voice bouncing off the wood-paneled walls like gunfire. That manipulative old witch left her nothing, and she thinks she can waltz in here and... He caught himself remembering the lawyer was still in the room, but his eyes burned with such pure hatred when they landed on Jennifer that she actually flinched. Attorney William Hayes cleared his throat, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses with trembling fingers. Mr. Thornwood, I must ask you to... But Victor wasn't finished. He grabbed the velvet pouch containing the 2 coins and hurled it across the table at Jennifer. It hit her chest and fell into her lap. There's your inheritance, cousin. Don't spend it all in one place. His laugh was cruel, sharp, echoing. His wife Cassandra joined in, her voice shrill and delighted, and within seconds, the entire room erupted in mocking laughter that felt like knives against Jennifer's skin. Before we continue with Jennifer's story, if you're enjoying this tale of injustice turned triumph, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's see what Jennifer does next. Jennifer Morrison sat frozen in her chair, her hands gripping the armrest so tight her knuckles had gone white. The laughter kept coming wave after wave, and she wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor, to evaporate into nothing. She was 38 years old, and this was somehow the most humiliating moment of her entire life, and that was saying something considering she'd been divorced in front of half of Portland society 3 years ago. Jennifer? Hayes's voice cut through the noise, quiet but firm. Would you like a moment? She shook her head, not trusting her voice. The velvet pouch sat in her lap, heavier than it should be. 2 commemorative dollar coins from 1972. That was it. That was her grandmother Margaret's final message to her after 5 years of silence, after all those unreturned phone calls, after Jen had poured her heart out in letter after letter trying to reconnect. Victor was still laughing, leaning back in his leather chair like he owned the world, which Jen supposed he kind of did now. The estate, the stocks, the jewelry, millions of dollars in assets, and Victor had gotten it all. Meanwhile, Jen got pocket change. Is there anything else? Jen managed to ask Hayes, her voice barely above a whisper. Hayes met her eyes, and something flickered in his expression. Pity. No, something else. Something almost like anticipation. Not at this time, he said carefully. But I'll be in touch. Oh, I'm sure you will, Victor sneered. Probably to help her contest the will. Good luck with that, Jen. Grandma Margaret was sharp as a tack right up until the end. Every psychiatrist in Portland will testify to that. She knew exactly what she was doing when she left you those coins. The words hit like a slap. Sharp as a tack. Knew exactly what she was doing. So this wasn't a mistake or an oversight due to dementia. Margaret had consciously, deliberately chosen to leave Jennifer $2 while Victor got everything. Cassandra leaned forward, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. Maybe you can use your inheritance to finally buy some decent clothes, Jennifer. That blazer looks like you got it from Goodwill. She had. Last Tuesday. $14, and she'd had to put back a pair of shoes the twins needed because she couldn't afford both. That's enough. Hayes stood abruptly. This meeting is concluded. Jennifer, my card. He pressed a business card into her hand, and when he did, he squeezed her fingers briefly. Check your phone in 10 minutes. Then he was ushering her out, one gentle hand on her elbow, guiding her through the doorway, while Victor's laughter followed like smoke. The hallway was cooler, quieter, but Jen's ears were still ringing. I'm sorry you had to endure that, Hayes said once they were alone by the elevators. Victor has always been difficult. He got everything he wanted. Why is he so angry? Hayes pressed the elevator call button. Because it wasn't enough. It's never enough for men like him. The elevator dinged. 10 minutes, Jennifer. Check your phone. Then he was gone, disappearing back into his office, and Jen was alone in the elevator with her reflection in the polished brass doors. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, that Goodwill blazer that Cassandra had mocked. She looked exactly like what she was, a broke, exhausted single mother who worked in a high school cafeteria and could barely afford rent. The elevator doors opened to the parking garage, and Jen walked to her car on autopilot. Not her car, really. It belonged to her manager, Mrs. Patterson, who'd loaned it to Jen when her own car died last month. Another debt she couldn't repay. Another failure to add to the pile. She sat in the driver's seat and finally let herself look at the coins. They were tarnished, dull, unremarkable, but when she turned one over, she saw something she'd missed before. Tiny engravings on the edge so small she could barely make them out. MLT Margaret Louise Thornwood. And numbers. A string of numbers that looked like coordinates. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello? Miss Morrison, this is William Hayes. I apologize for the cryptic instructions, but I have friends in that building, and I suspect Victor has the conference room bugged. He's paranoid about people talking behind his back. Jen's heart started beating faster. What's going on? Your inheritance is incomplete. Those coins are more than they appear. I need to show you something tomorrow, and it cannot wait. Can you meet me at my office at 9 a.m.? I have to work. I can't afford to miss a shift. Jennifer? Hayes' voice was urgent now. I heard about the custody filing. Richard submitted it this morning. The world tilted. What custody filing? Silence on the other end. Then gently, I'm sorry, I thought you knew. Richard filed for primary custody of the twins this morning. The hearing is set for 30 days from now. Jen couldn't breathe. Her vision tunneled. Primary custody. Richard was trying to take her daughters. Miss Morrison, Jennifer? I'm here, she whispered. 9 a.m. tomorrow. What I have to show you could change everything, not just the inheritance. Everything, including your custody battle. How could $2 coins possibly... Trust me, Hayes interrupted. Or rather, trust your grandmother. She was a remarkable woman, and she loved you very much. Those coins are a key, Jennifer, to something extraordinary. But you have to come see for yourself. He hung up before she could ask more questions. Jen sat in the borrowed car in the parking garage, 2 tarnished coins in her palm, and tried to understand what had just happened. Victor's rage, Hayes' cryptic messages, Richard filing for custody. Her phone rang again. This time she recognized the number. Richard. She considered not answering. But if he'd really filed for custody, she needed to know. What do you want? Jen, I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Richard's voice was smooth apologetic, the same voice he'd used when he told her he was sleeping with his secretary. Patricia suggested we move quickly before your financial situation deteriorates further. Patricia? My lawyer. Jen, this isn't personal. The girls need stability. You're living in a studio apartment working minimum wage. You can barely afford groceries. I'm their mother. And I'm their father, with a 6-figure income, health insurance, a 2-bedroom condo, money for their education. What can you give them? Love isn't enough, Jen. Kids need security. You're really doing this. It wasn't a question. I have to, for Lily and Emma. They deserve better than watching you struggle. Something in Jen snapped. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was Victor's laughter still echoing in her ears. Maybe it was the $2 coins burning in her palm like an accusation. But suddenly she was furious. I'll see you in court, Richard, and you can tell Patricia that I'm not rolling over, not this time. She hung up before he could respond. Then she sat there shaking, trying to figure out what to do next. She had no money for a lawyer. No way to fight Richard's expensive legal team. No way to prove she could provide the stability the courts wanted. Unless... She looked at the coins again. At those tiny engraved numbers. At William Hayes' card in her other hand. 9 a.m. tomorrow. Something extraordinary. A key. What the hell did she have to lose? Jen drove the borrowed car back to Lincoln High School, parked in the employee lot, and walked into the building through the back entrance. Lunch period was just ending, students flooding the hallways like a tide. They flowed around her without seeing her. She was invisible. Just another lunch lady in a hairnet. Jennifer, Mrs. Patterson hurried over, her kind face creased with concern. How did it go? About as expected. Jen forced a smile. Thank you for lending me your car. Of course, dear. And listen, if you need time to process, I need to work. Because working meant not thinking, not feeling. Not drowning in the knowledge that she'd been dismissed with $2 while Victor got millions and now Richard was trying to take her children. The afternoon shift passed in a blur of trays and mashed potatoes and teenagers who didn't see her. At 3 p.m., her phone buzzed with a text from Richard. The girls are asking about this weekend. My weekend per the current schedule. I'll pick them up Friday at 6. Jen wanted to throw her phone across the cafeteria, but she just texted back a thumbs-up emoji. When her shift ended at 4, she drove the borrowed car to her apartment. Except apartment was a generous term. Converted garage was more accurate. 400 square feet of peeling paint and water-stained ceiling, but it was hers. Well, she rented it. For $800 a month, she could barely afford. The Murphy bed was pulled down unmade from. This morning when the twins had rushed out, Lily's hoodie on the floor, Emma's library book on the tiny kitchenette counter. Evidence of her daughters everywhere, and Richard wanted to take them away. Jen sat on the sagging futon couch that served as her bed and finally let herself cry. She cried for her grandmother, who'd left her $2 like a final rejection. She cried for her marriage that had failed. She cried for her daughters, who deserved better than a mother who was barely holding it together. She cried until her eyes were swollen and her throat was raw and she had nothing left. Then she got up, washed her face, and started dinner. Because that's what mothers did. They kept going. The door burst open at 5:30. Lily, first dark hoodie and defensive scowl. Emma behind her neat braids and quiet eyes that took in everything. "Mom?" Lily dropped her backpack with a thud. "We're starving. What's for dinner?" "Mac and cheese," Jen said, stirring the pot on the 2-burner stove. "Again," Lily groaned. "Lily." Emma's voice was soft but firm. "Don't be rude." Jen's heart squeezed. Emma, at 11 years old, already trying to keep the peace, already taking care of everyone's feelings. Too grown up, too fast. They ate at the tiny table wedged against the wall. 3 mismatched plates, plastic forks. Jen gave the girls bigger portions and told herself she wasn't that hungry anyway. "How was school?" she asked. "Fine." Lily said her default answer. "Mrs. Patterson gave me this." Emma held up a worn paperback. "Wildlife of the Pacific Northwest. She said the library was throwing it out so I could keep it." "That's wonderful, sweetie." Jen smiled, even though it broke her heart a little. Her daughter so grateful for a discarded book. They finished eating. Emma washed dishes without being asked while Lily sprawled on the Murphy bed doing homework on her phone because they couldn't afford a laptop. "Mom," Lily's voice was careful. "Dad texted me today." Jen's hand froze on the dish towel. "Oh, he wants us this weekend. Says he's taking us to that new trampoline park." Of course he was. Richard with his unlimited budget for fun activities while Jen scraped together quarters for the dollar store. "That sounds nice," Jen lied. "He also said..." Lily trailed off, exchanged a look with Emma. "What?" Jen prompted. "He said we might be spending more time at his place soon, like maybe moving in with him for real." The room went very quiet. "Did he say why?" Jen asked, proud of how steady her voice sounded. "Something about a better living situation." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, we don't want to leave you. This place is small and kind of gross, but it's home. Your home?" Jen crossed to the bed and pulled both girls into her arms. "I'm fighting for you, both of you, I promise." "But Dad has lawyers," Emma whispered, "and money, and a nice apartment." "I have something better," Jen said, hoping it was true. "I have love, and I have..." She pulled the coins from her pocket. "I have a mystery to solve." Both girls leaned in curious despite themselves. "Your great-grandmother left me these, just these, while my cousin got millions, but there's something weird about them." She showed them the tiny engravings. "See these numbers? I think they might be coordinates. Like GPS coordinates." Lily took one coin, examining it closely. "Maybe. I'm meeting with the lawyer tomorrow to find out." "What if it's treasure?" Emma's eyes went wide. "Like a pirate treasure. Or what if it's nothing?" Lily countered, ever practical. "What if Grandma Margaret really did just leave you $2 as a final screw you?" "Language?" Jen said automatically. "It's still possible," Lily insisted. "Adults are mean sometimes, even family." "Your grandmother wasn't mean," Jen said, although she wasn't entirely sure anymore. "She was complicated." That night after the girls fell asleep in the Murphy bed they shared, Jen lay on the futon couch and stared at the water-stained ceiling. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Jennifer Morrison, this is Patricia Barnes. Mr. Morrison's attorney, I'm reaching out as a courtesy to inform you that we'll be filing additional documentation tomorrow morning citing your inadequate living conditions as grounds for immediate custody modification. I strongly suggest you retain counsel. The court date is August 14th at 9 a.m. 29 days. Jen had 29 days to find a lawyer she couldn't afford, prove she could provide stability she didn't have, and somehow convince a judge that love was enough. She looked at the coins on the coffee table gleaming dully in the streetlight filtering through the window. 9 a.m. tomorrow. William Hayes. Something extraordinary. It was the only hope she had. Jen woke at 6:30 to her phone alarm groggy and disoriented. For a moment she forgot about the custody filing, forgot about the $2 inheritance, forgot about everything except that she needed to get the girls up for school. Then it all came crashing back. She made breakfast oatmeal because it was cheap and filling. The girls ate quickly, sensing her tension even though she tried to hide it. "Mom, you okay?" Emma asked as she gathered her backpack. "Fine, sweetie, just tired." "You're always tired," Lily observed, not unkindly, just stating facts. After they left for school, Jen showered in the tiny bathroom where the shower curtain was growing mold she couldn't afford to replace. She put on her best outfit, the Goodwill blazer Cassandra had mocked, a black skirt with a loose thread she'd tried to fix, and the only pair of heels she hadn't sold last winter. She looked in the mirror. She looked like exactly what she was. Someone struggling. Someone barely hanging on. But she lifted her chin and grabbed her purse and the 2 coins and headed out. Hayes' office was in an older building downtown, nothing fancy. That actually made Jen feel better. If he'd been in some sleek high-rise like Victor's lawyers, she would have known she was out of her depth. The receptionist, an older woman with kind eyes, smiled when Jen gave her name. "Mr. Hayes is expecting you. Can I get you coffee?" "Yes, please." The office was cluttered but comfortable. Law books, photos of grandchildren, and a coffee maker that looked older than Jen. Hayes stood when she entered, gesturing to a worn leather chair. "Thank you for coming," he said, pouring coffee into a mug that said "World's Okayest Lawyer." "I know this must all seem very strange." "Strange is one word for it." Jen accepted the coffee. "Mr. Hayes, I need to understand. Was my grandmother really competent when she made that will? Because from where I'm sitting, leaving me $2 while Victor gets millions seems..." "Cruel," Hayes supplied. "Yes." "May I see the coins?" Jen pulled them from her purse and slid them across the desk. Hayes produced a jeweler's loupe and examined each one carefully, turning them in the light. "Tell me what you remember about your grandmother," he said while he looked. Jen's throat tightened. "I remember she used to take me to Forest Park when I was little, before my parents divorced. We'd hike for hours. I was obsessed with animals, with nature. I'd tell her about the communities I wanted to build, where people took care of each other and protected the environment." Jen smiled sadly. "She never laughed at me. She listened like I was saying something important." "You were saying something important." Hayes set down the loupe. "Your grandmother kept every letter you sent her after your mother remarried and moved you to Seattle. Every single one. She had them in a lockbox in her study. But she stopped answering them. 5 years ago, she just stopped." "I know. She asked me not to explain why, and I honored that request. But Jennifer, she never stopped thinking about you. She never stopped planning for you." "Planning what?" "As to humiliate me one last time," Hayes shook his head. "To test you, and to give you the greatest gift she could. $2 isn't much of a gift. These aren't ordinary coins." Hayes stood. "I need to show you something. It's about 90 minutes away. I can have you back by early afternoon." "I can't miss work." "I already called Mrs. Patterson and explained you had a family emergency. She said to take all the time you need." Jen stared at him. "You called my boss." "I've known Margaret for 43 years. She was my client and my friend. And she made me promise that when you came to me with those coins, I would drop everything and show you what she built. So that's what we're going to do, unless you'd rather go serve lunch to high school students and then lose custody of your daughters in court." The bluntness shocked her. "That was harsh," Hayes said, softening. "But true. Whatever you thought you knew about your inheritance, you're wrong. And if you want any chance of fighting Richard's custody petition, you need to see what I'm about to show you." Jen thought about her daughters, about Lily's tears, about Emma's quiet worry, about 29 days until she lost them. "Let's go," she said. They took Hayes' Honda Accord heading east on I-84. Portland's urban sprawl gradually gave way to suburbs, then to forest. Hayes didn't make small talk. Instead, he told her about Margaret. "Your grandmother came from nothing," he began. "Her father was a logger. She watched clear-cutting destroy the forest she loved. She married your grandfather, Henry, and they built Thornwood Timber together from the ground up. But Henry died in 1995, and Victor Henry's nephew thought he'd inherit the company." "But Grandma sold it," Jen remembered. "She transformed it," Hayes corrected. "She shut down the logging operations, donated most of the land to conservation trusts, and used the profits for something else. Something Victor could never understand or appreciate." They exited the highway onto increasingly narrow roads. Dense forest closed in on both sides, old-growth Douglas firs, western red cedars trees that had stood for centuries. "Where are we going?" Jen asked. "Somewhere that didn't exist when you were last in contact with your grandmother. Somewhere she built specifically with you in mind." They turned onto an unmarked gravel road. A quarter-mile in, they reached a gate. Simple iron post, a crossbar, nothing remarkable. Except for the 2 circular indentations and stone pillars on either side. Coin-sized indentations. "Go ahead," Hayes said quietly. Jen's hands were shaking as she got out of the car. She walked to the gate, the coins clutched in her fist. Up close, she could see that the indentations were precise, matching the coin's dimensions exactly. She inserted both coins simultaneously. Click. The gate swung open smoothly, silently revealing a packed earth road winding into the forest. "What is this?" Jen whispered. "Your inheritance," Hayes said. "Drive through." The road followed a creek sunlight filtering through the canopy in golden shafts. Then the forest opened up and Jen's breath caught in her throat. Scattered among the trees were hand-built timber cabins with living roofs covered in moss and wildflowers. Solar panels glinted on rooftops. A small water wheel turned lazily in the creek. Raised garden beds overflowed with vegetables. And everywhere, there were people. Working, talking, laughing, living. "What is this place?" Jen asked again. "Thornwood Sanctuary," Hayes replied. 400 acres of protected old-growth forest. Your grandmother built it over the past 20 years, and as of yesterday, you're the trustee. A woman approached as they parked early 60s silver hair in a practical braid, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. Her face was weather as sin, but warm, her eyes sharp and kind. "You must be Jennifer," she said. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. We've been waiting for you." "Waiting for me? I don't understand." "Your grandmother told us you'd come eventually. She said when you showed up with the coins, we'd know you were ready." Sarah smiled. "Ready to hear the truth about your inheritance, and ready to fight for it." "Fight for what?" Jen felt like she'd stepped into a dream. "This?" Sarah gestured around them. "All of this. Because Victor knows about this place and he wants it, and he'll do anything to take it away from you." More people gathered. A man in his 30s with a forearm crutch approached. "Marcus Webb," he introduced himself. "I manage the infrastructure here. Welcome to your grandmother's real legacy." A younger woman with a camera appeared. "Zoe Martinez, journalist. I've been documenting the community. Your grandmother gave me permission before she died." A family approached mother, father, 3 children. "We are Kowalskis," the mother said with an accent. "From Poland. Your grandmother gave us a home when no one else would." Jen felt dizzy. "I need to sit down." Sarah guided her to a bench beneath an enormous cedar tree. Hayes sat beside her, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "Your grandmother left you this letter. She specified it should be read here at the sanctuary after you open the gate." The envelope was heavy, expensive paper. Jen's hands trembled as she opened it and began to read. "My dearest Jennifer, if you're reading this beneath the old cedar, the one with the osprey nest, then William has done his job. Forgive the theatrics. I needed to be certain you'd come in person, not just send the coins to some appraiser. You're probably confused, perhaps angry that I left you only $2 while Victor received millions. Let me explain. When you were 10, you showed me a drawing of your perfect world. A forest community where people shared resources, protected nature, and healed together. Your teacher dismissed it as childish fantasy. Your mother laughed. But I saw wisdom. For 20 years, I've been building your vision into reality. Thornwood Sanctuary is home to 47 residents. Veterans healing from PTSD, refugees rebuilding their lives, single parents who fell through society's cracks, ordinary people who chose extraordinary lives. We have 60 micro-cabins, a community center, workshops, gardens that feed us year-round, and a micro-hydro dam providing clean electricity. More importantly, we have community built on cooperation, not competition. The sanctuary operates under the Thornwood Trust. As trustee, you'll have responsibility and resources. $12,000 monthly tax-free. Full health insurance for you and your dependents. Housing in the trustee cabin. Educational funds for your daughters. And an operational budget for the sanctuary. Why the secrecy? Because I needed to see what you'd do when you thought you had nothing. Would you be bitter, defeated, or would you keep fighting with that fierce love I saw in you as a child? You passed the test simply by showing up. Now for the difficult truth. Victor has been trying to acquire this land for 18 months. The timber alone is worth $30 million. But there's more. Geologists discovered lithium deposits beneath the western ridge, worth potentially $80 to $100 million. Victor has filed multiple challenges to the trust's validity, claiming I was mentally incompetent. He's wrong, of course. I've been getting quarterly cognitive assessments from Dr. Chen for 3 years, all documented. But he won't stop. He'll come after you, too. The 2 coins aren't just keys to the gate. Look closely at their edges. You'll find coordinates engraved there. Those coordinates lead to something important, something you'll need when Victor escalates. The sanctuary isn't just a place. It's a promise that another world is possible, a promise that you, my brilliant granddaughter, can protect. Victor values only money. You inherit something far more precious, a living legacy and the means to expand it. With all my love and faith, Grandmother Margaret. P.S. Your daughters will love the Treehouse Library. Emma especially. Jen's tears fell on the paper, smudging the ink. Around her, the community waited quietly. She really built this, Jen whispered. For me? She built it with you in mind, Sarah said gently, but she built it for everyone who needed it. How long do I have? Jen looked at Hayes. Before Victor comes after this place. Hayes grimaced. He's already started. He filed a motion 3 days ago challenging the trust's validity. Hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from now. He's claiming Margaret was incompetent, that you manipulated her, that the trust should be dissolved with all assets reverting to him. But I didn't even know about this place until an hour ago. I know, but Victor doesn't care about truth. He cares about winning. Hayes pulled out another document. There's more. I did some research on your custody case. Richard's lawyer, Patricia Barnes, she's connected to Victor's firm. They've worked together before. The pieces fell into place. Victor put Richard up to this, the custody filing. Geek, I can't prove it, Hayes said. But the timing is suspicious. Victor knows that if you're fighting for custody, you'll be distracted, vulnerable, easy to defeat in court. Jen stood abruptly. Where's this trustee cabin? Sarah led her to a larger cabin near the community center. 3 bedrooms, updated kitchen, comfortable living room. Through the windows, she could see the forest, the creek, the community. $12,000 a month? Jen asked. Tax-free? Sarah confirmed. Plus healthcare, education funds, everything in the letter. And I can bring my daughters here. That's the whole point, Sarah said. This is your home now, if you want it. Jen turned to Hayes. What do I do about Victor? First, we prove Margaret was competent. Sarah's medical documentation will help with that. Second, we show that you're the rightful trustee and acting in the trust's best interests. Third, he hesitated. Third, we figure out what those coordinates on the coins lead to. Margaret doesn't do anything without a reason. If she left you a clue, it's important. Marcus appeared in the doorway. Actually, I can help with that. I'm pretty good with Jeeps. Want me to check where those coordinates point? 20 minutes later, they were gathered around a tablet, looking at a topographical map. The coordinates lead to a location about half a mile northwest of here, Marcus said. There's nothing on the map, just forest. We should go look, Zoe suggested. Now, Jen asked. Why not, unless you'd rather go back to Portland and serve cafeteria food while Richard's lawyers file more motions? Jen thought about her daughters, about Lily's defiant scowl hiding her fear, about Emma's quiet worry, about 29 days until the custody hearing. Let's go, she decided. They took an electric utility vehicle bouncing along forest paths. The coordinates led them deep into old growth, where the trees were so massive they blocked most of the sunlight. Finally, they reached it. A cedar stump at least 15 feet in diameter, the remains of a tree that must have been ancient when it fell. Now what? Jen asked. Marcus circled the stump, examining it carefully. Wait, this section looks different. He pulled at a piece of bark, and suddenly a section swung open like a door. Inside the hollow stump was a waterproof case. Jen's heart was pounding as she opened it. Inside USB drives, documents, and a video camera with a note attached. Play me first. They carried the case back to the trustee cabin, everyone silent with anticipation. Jen's hands shook as she connected the camera to her laptop. Sarah, Marcus, Zoe, and Hayes crowded around the screen. Margaret's face appeared and Jen's breath caught. This had been filmed maybe a year before she died. Her grandmother looked thinner than Jen remembered, but her eyes were sharp, fierce, alive. Jennifer, if you're watching this, Victor has probably challenged the trust. I expected this. Your cousin is predictable. Greedy, arrogant, willing to destroy anything he can't own. Margaret's voice was strong, clear. No confusion, no hesitation. This was not a woman with dementia. I've spent 3 years documenting his crimes. Yes, crimes. Victor's company, Thornwood Timber Corporation, has been illegally logging protected lands, bribing county officials, dumping chemical waste into watersheds. I have evidence. Recordings, photos, testimonies from whistleblowers. Hayes leaned forward, his expression intense. He wants the sanctuary land because geologists found lithium deposits worth over $80 million. But mining would destroy the aquifer that supplies water to 3 counties. Victor doesn't care. He sees dollar signs, not consequences. Margaret's eyes seemed to look directly at Jen through the screen. On these USB drives, you will find everything you need to stop him. But be careful, Jennifer. Cornered animals are dangerous. Victor will escalate. He'll go after everything you love. Your daughters, your reputation, your freedom. He'll burn down the world rather than let you win." The video ended. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Then Zoe reached for one of the USB drives. "We need to see what's on these." The first drive contained audio files. Zoe clicked on one. Victor's voice filled the cabin crystal clear. "Dale, I need that logging permit approved by Friday. I don't care what the environmental assessment says. You owe me for that campaign contribution." Another voice, older, nervous. "Victor, if the EPA finds out..." "They won't. Not if you do your job. 50,000 Dale. Cash untraceable." "That's County Commissioner Dale Parsons," Hayes said quietly. "He oversees all logging permits in this region." The next file was photos. Illegal clear-cutting in protected forest zones. Trucks dumping barrels of chemicals into streams. Before and after shots showing environmental devastation. "This is enough to destroy his company," Marcus breathed. Prison time. Massive fines. The third drive contained emails. Zoe scrolled through them, her journalist instincts activated. "Look at this. Internal communications discussing disposal solutions for chemical waste. They knew it was contaminating the water supply. They did it anyway." "There's testimony here too," Sarah said, opening a document folder. 3 former employees detailing safety violations, environmental crimes, everything. Jen stared at the screen, feeling sick. "He's been doing this for years, poisoning the land, bribing officials, breaking every law he could find." "And your grandmother documented all of it," Hayes said. "She was building a case." "Why didn't she go to the authorities herself?" Jen asked. "Because she knew they'd bury it," Zoe answered. "Victor has connections everywhere. Lawyers, judges, politicians. He'd make it disappear. But if it comes out at the right moment in the right way, he can't stop it." The trust hearing, Sarah realized. If he's claiming Margaret was incompetent, we show she was actually investigating his crimes, that she had very good reasons to exclude him from her will. Hayes was already making notes. "This changes everything. We're not just defending a trust. We're exposing corporate crime." Jen's phone buzzed. "Richard." She considered ignoring it, but answered. "We need to talk," Richard said without preamble. "About this weekend with the girls." "What about it?" "I think it's better if they stay with me, given your current situation. Our custody agreement says they're with you every other weekend. This isn't your weekend." "Jen, be reasonable. You're living in a garage. You can barely afford food. Now you're involved in some estate dispute with Victor Thornwood. It's not stable." "How do you know about Victor?" Jen asked slowly. Silence on the other end. "Too long." "Richard, how do you know?" "He may have mentioned it. We're on the same golf league." The pieces clicked together. "He's paying you. Victor's paying you to file for custody." "That's ridiculous." "Is it how much, Richard? What's my daughter's custody worth to you?" "You're being paranoid. I'm doing what's best for Lily and Emma." "Then bring them to me this Friday, as scheduled, unless you want to explain to a judge why you're violating our custody agreement." She hung up before he could respond. Her hands were shaking. "He's working with Victor," she told the others. "I'm sure of it." Hayes nodded grimly. "Then we need to move fast. Victor's playing chess while we're still learning the rules." "What do we do?" Jen asked. "We document everything happening here at the sanctuary," Zoe said. "Show that this is a legitimate, thriving community, that you're a responsible trustee, that Margaret was brilliant, not incompetent. Check down. And we prepare to release this evidence at the trust hearing," Hayes added. "Victor will walk into that courtroom thinking he's fighting about an old woman's mental capacity. Instead, he'll face criminal charges." "But we can't release it too early," Sarah warned. "If Victor gets wind of what we have, he'll destroy evidence, intimidate witnesses, use his lawyers to bury everything." "So we wait," Marcus said. "We let him think he's winning." Jen looked around. At these people she'd met hours ago who were already treating her like family. "Why are you all helping me? You don't even know me." "Margaret asked us to," Sarah said simply. "She told us her granddaughter would come eventually, that you'd need our help fighting Victor, that you'd be worth fighting for." "Besides," Marcus added with a slight smile, "if Victor takes this land, we all lose our homes. This isn't just your fight." Jen's phone buzzed again, a text from Lily. "Mom, Dad's being weird. He keeps asking questions about where you live and who you're with. Are you in trouble?" Jen's chest tightened. Victor was using Richard to gather information about her, and dragging her daughters into it. She typed back. "Everything's fine, sweetie. I'll explain when I see you Friday. I love you." "I need to leave," Jen said abruptly. I have to get back before the girls get home from school." "Of course," Hayes said. "But Jennifer, one more thing. You should consider moving here, to the sanctuary, as soon as possible." "I can't just abandon my apartment, my job." "Mrs. Patterson already knows you're transitioning to a new position," Hayes interrupted. "I spoke with her this morning. She's supportive." "You can't just rearrange my life without asking me." "Margaret did," Hayes said gently. "She arranged everything. The trust, the stipend, this community, all of it. She spent 20 years building you an escape route. The question is, are you brave enough to take it?" Jen wanted to argue, but she thought about the studio apartment with its water-stained ceiling, about the Murphy bed her daughters shared, about serving cafeteria food while Richard's lawyers filed motions to take her children away. "I need to think," she said. Hayes drove her back to Portland in silence. When he dropped her at the school, he handed her a folder. "Everything you need to understand the trust. Your stipend starts immediately. The trustee cabin is yours whenever you're ready. And Jennifer, think fast. The custody hearing is in 28 days. That night, Jen sat with the twins in their tiny apartment and tried to find the right words. "I have something to tell you," she began, "about your great-grandmother Margaret." She told them everything. The coins, the sanctuary, the trust, the evidence against Victor. She watched their faces shift from confusion to amazement and to excitement. "Wait, so we're rich now?" Lily asked. "Not rich, but stable, secure. I have a real income health insurance, a place for us to live. In the woods," Emma's eyes were wide, "with other families. Yes, if you want to. It's different from here. Smaller community farther from your school, but it's beautiful and safe and it's not this gross garage," Lily interrupted. "Mom, yes, obviously yes. But your school, your friends." "We can make new friends," Emma said. "And Mom, maybe we can help with the evidence against that Victor guy. We're good at research." Jen pulled them both into a hug. "When did you two get so brave?" "We learned from you," Lily said, her voice muffled against Jen's shoulder. Friday came too quickly. Richard arrived at 6 p.m. sharp to pick up the girls for the weekend. He barely looked at Jen. "I'll have them back Sunday at 7, he said. "Richard, wait." Jen stepped outside, lowering her voice. "Whatever Victor's offering you, it's not worth it. He's using you." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. And when this all comes out, when Victor goes down, everyone connected to him goes too, including you." Richard's jaw tightened. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you. As the father of my children, walk away from Victor before it's too late." He didn't respond, just got in his car and drove away with the twins. Jen watched the taillights disappear and felt her heart break a little. The weekend passed in a blur of packing. Jen gave her landlord notice, loaded her few possessions into boxes, and prepared to move to the sanctuary. Mrs. Patterson helped kind, as always. "Your grandmother must have been quite a woman," Mrs. Patterson said as they packed Jen's meager kitchen supplies. "I'm starting to realize that. You know she came to see me once, about 6 months before she died." Jen stopped packing. "What?" "She wanted to know about you. How you were doing, whether you were happy." "I told her the truth, that you were struggling but fierce, that you loved your daughters more than anything, that you deserved better than what life had given you." Mrs. Patterson smiled. "She said that's exactly what she thought, that you were stronger than you knew." Jen's eyes filled with tears. "She never told me she visited." "I think she wanted to make sure that you were the right person for whatever she was planning. And you are, dear. You absolutely are." Sunday evening, Richard brought the girls back. They bounced out of the car full of stories about the trampoline park and the movie they'd seen, but their eyes kept darting to the packed boxes. "Are we really leaving?" Emma asked after Richard drove away. "Tomorrow," Jen confirmed. "I'll get you to school from the sanctuary. It's a longer drive, but we'll manage." "What if Dad tries to stop us?" Lily asked. "He can't. Not legally. Not yet." That night, Jen barely slept. Tomorrow, she'd move to the sanctuary, start her new life as trustee, prepare for the battles ahead. Tomorrow, everything changed. Her phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Hayes. "Victor knows," he said without preamble. "Someone tipped him off about the sanctuary. He's filing an emergency motion tomorrow morning, claiming you're illegally occupying trust property before the competency hearing." "But I'm the trustee." "He's arguing the trust isn't valid until the competency question is resolved. It's a stalling tactic, but it might work. If the judge grants the motion, you'll be barred from the sanctuary until after the hearing." "Can he do that?" "He can try. I'm filing a counter motion first thing in the morning. But Jennifer, you need to move to the sanctuary tonight, right now, before his motion is filed. Once you're in residence, it's much harder to remove you. Jen looked at her sleeping daughters. It's 2 in the morning. I know, but if you wait until tomorrow, you might lose your window. Victor's lawyers will be at the courthouse at 9 a.m. We need you established as a resident before then. This is insane. Welcome to fighting Victor Thornwood. Nothing about this is sane. But if you want to win, if you want to keep your daughters, you need to move now. Jen ended the call and sat in the darkness thinking. Then she went to the Murphy bed and gently shook her daughters awake. Girls, wake up, we're leaving. Now, Lily mumbled groggy, right now, get dressed, grab your backpacks. Mom, what's happening? Emma asked, suddenly alert. We're going to the sanctuary, tonight. It's complicated, but we need to go. To their credit, the twins didn't argue. 20 minutes later, they were loading boxes into Mrs. Patterson's borrowed car by flashlight. Jen left her keys in the landlord's mailbox with a note. The drive to the sanctuary took 90 minutes. The girls fell asleep in the back seat, and Jen drove through the darkness with her heart pounding. She was doing this. Really doing this. Leaving everything familiar for a community she'd known for less than a week. But as she approached the gate and inserted the 2 coins as it swung open silently to reveal the moonlit path ahead, something in her chest loosened. This was right. This was home. Sarah was waiting at the trustee cabin, somehow knowing they'd arrive tonight. Hayes called me, she explained, helping carry sleeping girls to their new bedrooms. Welcome home, Jennifer. Jen stood in the living room of the cabin that was now hers, looking around at space and light and possibility. I can't believe I'm doing this. Margaret believed you would, Sarah said. She told me once that you were the bravest person she'd ever known. You just didn't know it yet. The next morning, Jen woke to sunlight streaming through windows that didn't have water stains. She could hear birds wind in the trees. Voices of the community starting their day, and from the bedrooms she heard her daughters talking excitedly. She got up and found them already dressed, staring out the windows at the sanctuary. Mom, Emma breathed, there are kids out there, playing. And there's a library and a treehouse, Lily added, reading from a community map on the wall. And a computer lab and the engineering workshop Marcus mentioned. Want to explore before school? Jen asked. They were out the door in seconds. Jen made coffee and called Hayes. We're here. We moved in at 3 a.m. Perfect timing. Victor's emergency motion was filed at 9. I just submitted our response. You're officially in residence at the sanctuary, which strengthens our argument that you're acting as legitimate trustee. What happens now? Now we wait for the judge's ruling. Could be today, could be next week. In the meantime, live your life. Be visible in the community. Document everything. Show that you're responsible, stable, capable. And the custody hearing, 26 days. But Jennifer Richards filing for an emergency hearing. He's claiming you kidnapped the girls by moving them without his consent. Jen's coffee mug slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. What? It's baseless. You have every right to move. But he's arguing you're making it difficult for him to exercise his visitation rights. The sanctuary is only 90 minutes from Portland. I know, but he's using it as ammunition. The emergency hearing is Friday, 4 days from now. Jen wanted to scream. Instead, she cleaned up the broken mug and tried to breathe. A knock on the door. Sarah stood there with a first aid kit. Heard glass breaking. Everyone okay? Physically, yes. Jen explained about Richard's emergency hearing. Sarah's expression hardened. Then we make sure when that judge looks at your life, he sees stability. Come on. Let's get you integrated into the community routine. Show you what being trustee actually means. The next 4 days were a whirlwind. Jen attended morning council meetings where residents discussed work assignments and community needs. She helped in the gardens learning about sustainable agriculture. She met every resident, heard their stories, understood why the sanctuary mattered so much to so many people. The Kowalski children, especially the 12-year-old Kezia, adopted Emma immediately. They spent hours in the treehouse library reading about wildlife and ecology. Lily found her place in the engineering workshop where Marcus let her work on actual projects, not kid stuff, real technical challenges. Your daughters are thriving, Sarah observed on Thursday evening. Emma's opened up more in 3 days than some kids do in months, and Lily, she's got a gift for engineering. They're happy, Jen agreed. Really happy, for the first time since the divorce. That's what you tell the judge tomorrow. The emergency custody hearing was held in a small courtroom with Judge Helen Martinez presiding. Richard sat with Patricia Barnes, both looking confident. Jen had Hayes and a folder full of photos from the past 4 days. Mr. Morrison has filed an emergency motion claiming Ms. Morrison relocated the minor children without proper notice, interfering with his custody rights. Judge Martinez began. Ms. Morrison, what's your response? Jen stood. Your Honor, I exercised my right to move to housing provided through my new position as trustee of the Thornwood Sanctuary Trust. I notified Mr. Morrison of my new address immediately. The sanctuary is 90 minutes from his residence, well within reasonable distance for visitation. Your Honor, Patricia interjected. Ms. Morrison moved to an isolated compound in the middle of the night. She's involving the children in a bizarre living situation with strangers. The sanctuary is a legally established trust community with 47 residents. Hayes interrupted. It's not isolated. It has internet, electricity, running water, and a school program approved by the State Education Board. Show me, Judge Martinez demanded. Jen presented photos, the twins with other children in the treehouse library, Emma helping in the medical clinic, Lily working on solar panel maintenance, images of a thriving, healthy community. These were taken over the past 4 days, Jen explained. My daughters have made friends engaged in educational activities and expressed genuine happiness for the first time in months. Judge Martinez studied the photos. Mr. Morrison, have you visited this sanctuary? No, Your Honor, but... Then how can you claim it's unsuitable, Ms. Morrison? I'm denying the emergency motion. You have the right to choose your residence. However, she fixed Jen with a stern look. The main custody hearing remains scheduled. At that time, we'll thoroughly evaluate the living situation. Mr. Morrison, you're entitled to visit the sanctuary and assess the environment for yourself. Your Honor, Patricia protested, my client has concerns, which he can address at the main hearing. This emergency motion is dismissed. Outside the courtroom, Richard approached Jen. You think you're so smart, don't you? I think I'm protecting my daughters. From what? From me, I'm their father. You're Victor Thornwood's puppet, Jen said quietly. And when he goes down, you're going with him at... Last chance, Richard. Walk away. His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, and soon everyone will. She walked away, feeling his stare burning into her back. That night at the sanctuary, Zoe found Jen on the cabin porch. I need to show you something. I've been analyzing the evidence from Margaret's USB drives. There's a pattern in the financial records. Shell companies' money laundering connections to offshore accounts. And I think Victor's been funding Richard's lifestyle. The fancy condo, the new car, the expensive lawyer, all of it traces back to Thornwood Timber Corporation subsidiaries. Jen's stomach turned. He bought Richard. More than that, he owns him. If Victor goes down for environmental crimes, Richard goes down for accepting bribes and filing false custody claims. We need to tell Hayes. Already did. He's amending our trust defense to include evidence of Victor's attempts to manipulate the custody case. This is so much bigger than I thought. Zoe smiled grimly. Welcome to investigative journalism. Follow the money and you always find more crimes. A commotion at the sanctuary entrance made them both turn. Headlights, multiple vehicles, voices raised in anger. Marcus came running. We have a problem. Victor's here, with security guards and a camera crew. Jen's blood ran cold. What does he want? He's claiming he has a right to inspect the property, says he's documenting code violations and safety hazards. Can he do that? Not legally, no, but he's doing it anyway. Jen ran to the gate. Sure enough, Victor stood there with 4 large men in security uniforms and a professional videographer. He smiled when he saw her. Hello, cousin. Nice little setup you've got here. Shame about all the building code violations. You're trespassing, Jen said, keeping her voice steady. Am I? This property is under legal dispute. I have every right to inspect it. No, you don't. Not until after the competency hearing. Then I guess we'll see what the sheriff says. Victor pulled out his phone. I'm sure Sheriff Granger will be very interested in the unlicensed construction, unpermitted utilities, and Sheriff Granger is your brother-in-law's golf buddy. Sarah's voice cut through the darkness as she stepped forward. Dale Parsons, the county commissioner you bribed. We have recordings, Victor, of everything. Victor's smile faltered for half a second before returning colder. Prove it. We will, Jen said. In court. At the trust hearing. You mean the hearing where I prove my dear Aunt Margaret was senile when she created this little commune, that hearing? Victor gestured to his videographer. Get shots of everything. The unsafe structures, the children living in, what amounts to a shantytown, the complete disregard for proper permits. We have every permit required by law, Marcus said, appearing beside Jen with a tablet. Building permits, utility permits, occupancy permits, all filed with the county and approved. Would you like to see them? Victor's jaw tightened. Those can be forged. They're in the county database, public record. Feel free to check. The security guards looked uncomfortable now. The videographer had lowered his camera. Victor was losing control of his theatrical inspection, and he knew it. This isn't over, Victor said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Jennifer. I've been building Thornwood timber for 20 years. You think some old lady's sentimental project can stop me? She wasn't sentimental, Jen replied. She was strategic, and she knew exactly who you were. Victor stepped closer to the gate, close enough that Jen could see the fury in his eyes. I'm giving you one last chance. Sell me this land, 20 million cash. Walk away, take your kids, disappear, or I will destroy you, not just in court, everywhere. Your custody case, your reputation, your future. I will make sure you never work again, never see those girls again, never have a moment's peace. No. The word hung in the night air, simple and absolute. Victor stared at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was terrifying. Okay, we do this the hard way. He turned and left his entourage following. The vehicles disappeared down the gravel road, taillights fading into darkness. Jen's knees went weak. Sarah caught her elbow. You did good. He's going to escalate, Marcus said quietly. That was a threat, not a bluff. Let him try, Zoe said, her camera still recording. I got every word, including his bribery admission about Parsons. He didn't admit anything, Jen pointed out. Sarah mentioned the bribes, but he didn't confirm them. No, but his reaction did. That moment of panic before he recovered, that's guilt. Any decent prosecutor will see it. They returned to the community center where residents had gathered, worried. Jen addressed them, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. Victor Thornwood just tried to intimidate us. He failed. We have the law on our side, we have the truth, and we have each other. He can't break that. But he can make our lives miserable, Elena Kowalski said, her accent thick with worry. In Poland, I see what powerful men do when challenged. They hurt the weak first. Then we protect each other, Sarah said firmly. We increase security, we document everything, we stay vigilant. Victor wants us scared and divided. We show him united and strong. After the meeting dispersed, Jen found her daughters in their bedroom, both awake and frightened. Mom, who was that man? Emma asked. My cousin, your great-grandmother's nephew. He sounded mean, Lily said, like really mean, the way he looked at you. He's trying to take the sanctuary away from us, but he won't succeed. How do you know? Emma's voice was small. Because your great-grandmother gave me something more powerful than money. She gave me the truth, and truth always wins eventually. That's not true, Lily said flatly. Sometimes bad people win. Sometimes they win a lot. Jen sat on the bed between them. You're right, sometimes they do, but not this time. Not if we fight smart and stick together. We want to help, Emma said. You are helping. By being here, by being happy, by showing that this place works. That's everything. After they fell asleep, Jen stood at the window looking out at the dark forest. Victor's threat replayed in her mind. He would destroy her. He'd said it with such certainty, such conviction. Her phone buzzed. Hayes. I heard about Victor's visit. Are you okay? Define okay? I'm filing for a restraining order tomorrow morning. He can't keep harassing you on the property. Will it work? Maybe, maybe not, but it creates a record of his behavior, which helps us. Hayes, what if he wins? What if the judge believes him about Margaret's competency? Then we appeal, and we release the evidence publicly. Victor goes to prison regardless. But we lose the sanctuary. Jennifer. Hayes' voice was gentle. Your grandmother built this place over 20 years. She didn't do that expecting it to be easy to keep. She did it knowing there would be a fight, and she chose you to fight it because she believed you could win. After hanging up, Jen couldn't sleep. She went to the community center and made coffee sitting in the quiet darkness. Her mind raced through everything that had happened in the past week. The will reading felt like a lifetime ago. Can't sleep either, Jen jumped. Zoe stood in the doorway. Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. Zoe poured herself coffee and sat down. I've been going through more of Margaret's files. There's something you should see. She opened her laptop, pulling up a document. This is an internal Thornwood timber memo from 6 months ago. It's about this property. Jen read the screen. Preliminary geological survey confirms lithium deposits exceeding initial estimates. Potential value 120 million. Recommend aggressive acquisition strategy including legal challenges to current ownership structure. They knew, Jen breathed. 6 months ago, they already knew about the lithium and were planning to challenge the trust. It gets worse. Look at the date of this memo versus the date Margaret established the trust. Jen compared them. The trust was established 8 months ago, before this memo. Exactly. Margaret knew they were coming. She created the trust specifically to protect the land from Victor's mining plans. How did she know how? Zoe pulled up another file. She had someone inside Thornwood Timber, a whistleblower feeding her information. Who? The memos don't say, just refers to them as Source W. But whoever it is, they're still there. The most recent information is dated 3 weeks ago. Jen's mind spun. We need to find out who Source W is. I'm working on it, but Jen, this person is risking everything to expose Victor. If he finds out they're in serious danger, then we protect them, however we can. Zoe closed her laptop. Margaret was playing a long game. Everything she did, every document she saved, every system she put in place, it was all preparation for this fight. I just wish she'd warned me. Maybe she thought you weren't ready to hear it, or maybe she knew you needed to discover it yourself so you'd understand what you were fighting for. Jen sipped her coffee. Do you think we can win? Honestly, I've covered a lot of corporate crime stories. Companies like Thornwood Timber, they usually win. They have money lawyers' connections. They bury the opposition. That's not reassuring. But, Zoe continued, they usually win because nobody fights back hard enough. Because people get scared or bought off or broken down. You haven't done any of that. And your grandmother built you an arsenal. So yeah, I think we can win. If we're smart and lucky and absolutely relentless. The next morning brought new problems. Marcus discovered someone had tampered with the dam's control system overnight. Nothing catastrophic, but deliberate sabotage designed to cause the water levels to rise dangerously. If I hadn't caught it, we'd have had flooding by this afternoon, Marcus explained, showing Jen the damaged controls. Somebody knew exactly what they were doing. Victor, Jen said immediately. Probably, but proving it is different. They reported it to the county sheriff, who sent a deputy to take a statement. The deputy looked bored, clearly uninterested. Could have been kids, he said. Or animals. Animals that unscrew control panels and cut specific wires, Marcus demanded. I'll file a report. That's all I can do. After he left, Sarah pulled Jen aside. Sheriff Granger is Victor's friend. We're not going to get help from law enforcement. Then we protect ourselves. Jen made a decision. Marcus, can you set up security cameras? Hidden ones covering all the critical infrastructure. Already on it. I've got trail cameras we use for wildlife monitoring. I can repurpose them. And I'll start doing regular perimeter checks, Zoe added. If someone's sneaking onto the property, we'll catch them. The sabotage attempt rattled the community. Parents kept children closer. Residents volunteered for night watches. The atmosphere shifted from peaceful to tense. Richard called that afternoon. I heard there was an incident at your compound. How did you hear that? Jen asked carefully. Word gets around. Listen, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's not safe there. Bring the girls back to Portland. We're safer here than we were in that garage apartment. Are you someone sabotaging your dam? What's next? How do you know it was the dam specifically? That detail wasn't in any police report. Silence. Too long. Richard, who told you? I have to go. He hung up. Jen stared at her phone. Richard knew about the dam sabotage before it was public information, which meant Victor told him, which meant Victor orchestrated it. She called Hayes immediately. We need to add attempted sabotage to our case against Victor, and Richard's involvement needs to be documented. He knew details he shouldn't have known. I'll add it to our filing, but Jennifer without proof, Victor ordered the sabotage, it's just speculation. We'll get proof. That night, Marcus's hidden cameras captured something. 2 men in dark clothing approaching the dam at 2 a.m. They worked quickly, efficiently, trying to damage the spillway controls. But this time, Marcus was ready. He'd set up motion alarms. He and 3 other residents confronted the men before they could finish. Sheriff's Department, one man shouted, flashing a badge. Bullshit, Marcus replied. Real deputies don't sneak around at 2 a.m. disabling safety systems. Who sent you? The men ran. Marcus got photos, license plates, everything. By morning, Zoe had identified them. Private security contractors from a firm Thornwood Timber frequently hired. "We've got them," Zoe said triumphantly. "Direct connection to Victor's company." Hayes filed emergency motions that afternoon, showing the sabotage attempts, the connections to Victor, the escalating harassment, requesting immediate protective orders. Judge Abraham Cole, who'd be hearing the trust case, reviewed the motions. His response came the next day. Motion denied. Insufficient evidence of Mr. Thornwood's direct involvement. The court recommends Ms. Morrison pursue criminal charges through proper law enforcement channels if she believes crimes have occurred. Jen wanted to scream. Of course there's insufficient evidence. Victor's too smart to leave direct connections. Then we need to make him sloppy, Zoe said. We need to push him until he makes a mistake we can prove. How? We start releasing pieces of Margaret's evidence, not everything, just enough to rattle him. Make him think we're going public. See what desperate move he makes. Hayes was skeptical. That's risky. If he knows we have evidence, he'll work harder to discredit it. He already knows we have something, Zoe countered. Margaret's video mentioned evidence. He's been trying to figure out what we've got. Let's tell him. Partially, strategically. They decided Zoe would publish an article in the Portland Tribune. Not the full evidence dump, just enough to make Victor sweat. The article ran 3 days later. Local timber company faces allegations of environmental crime. Anonymous source provides documentation of illegal logging bribery. The article was carefully worded, making no direct accusations but heavily implying wrongdoing. It mentioned Thornwood Timber by name. It referenced upcoming legal proceedings that might expose more. Victor's response was immediate and furious. His lawyers sent cease and desist letters. He went on local news calling it a smear campaign. He threatened to sue the Tribune for defamation. But more importantly, he made a mistake. In a radio interview defending his company, Victor said, "These accusations are absurd. We follow every environmental regulation, and anyone who claims otherwise, whether it's my unstable cousin or some dead old woman's paranoid delusions, will face legal consequences." The interview aired Thursday afternoon. By Thursday evening, it was viral. Because Victor had just publicly called his dead aunt paranoid and delusional, which directly supported the trust invalidation case he was making, but he'd also revealed he knew Jennifer was behind the accusations, which meant he'd read the article carefully, which meant he was worried. "He's rattled," Hayes said. "Good. Rattled people make mistakes." The trust hearing was scheduled for Monday, 4 days away. Jen spent the weekend rehearsing her testimony with Hayes, organizing the evidence presentation. The twins spent Saturday helping. Lily had created a database of all Margaret's evidence cross-referencing dates and people. Emma had compiled resident testimonials about why the sanctuary mattered. "You're both brilliant," Jen told them Saturday night. "We're helping," Lily said simply. "Like you said." Sunday brought disaster. Fire alarms woke the sanctuary at 3 a.m. Flames on the western ridge spreading fast in the dry summer heat. The entire community mobilized. Marcus called 911 while residents grabbed fire extinguishers, hoses, anything they could use. The fire trucks took 45 minutes to arrive. By then, 20 acres had burned. The community had managed to keep the flames away from the buildings, but it was close. Too close. The fire marshal arrived at dawn. "Looks like a legal campfire in dry conditions," he said, not meeting anyone's eyes. "That's Victor's land that's burning," Jen said. "The western ridge where the lithium deposits are." "Ma'am, I'm just reporting what I see." "Look again. Look at the multiple ignition points. This wasn't one campfire. This was arson." The fire marshal left without changing his report. But Zoe's cameras had captured everything. 2 men, same ones from the dam incident, setting fires in multiple locations. Deliberate, systematic, arson. "We take this to the FBI," Jen said. "This is federal land, protected forest, environmental terrorism." Hayes made the calls. FBI agents arrived Monday morning, the same day as the trust hearing. They interviewed residents, reviewed footage, examined the burn sites. "We're opening an investigation," the lead agent said. "But ma'am, I have to warn you, these things take time. Months, sometimes years." "We don't have years," Jen said. "We have hours. The hearing is today." "Then I suggest you show the judge what you showed us. This is clearly criminal activity targeting your property." The courtroom was packed when they arrived. Victor sat with his team of lawyers, 5 of them all in expensive suits. He smiled when he saw Jen, confident and cruel. Judge Cole entered. Everyone rose. This is a hearing to determine the validity of the Thornwood Trust established by Margaret Louise Thornwood, deceased. Mr. Westbrook, you may present your case. Victor's lead lawyer stood. Your Honor, this case is simple. Margaret Thornwood in her final years suffered from dementia. We have medical experts ready to testify she exhibited classic symptoms including memory loss, confusion, inability to manage financial decisions. In this vulnerable state, she was manipulated into creating an unusual trust that gave away millions to strangers. He called his first expert witness Dr. Richard Holloway, neurologist, the same doctor from Jen's research, expensive expert witness who testified for whoever paid him. Based on the records provided, Mrs. Thornwood showed clear signs of cognitive decline consistent with dementia, Dr. Holloway said smoothly. Hayes cross-examined. Doctor, did you ever personally examine Mrs. Thornwood? No, but did you review her quarterly cognitive assessments performed by her personal physician? I was not provided those. Convenient. Your Honor, I'd like to submit documentation of Margaret Thornwood's quarterly cognitive assessments performed by Dr. Sarah Chen, all showing normal cognition for her age. Shoop. He presented the files. Judge Cole reviewed them, Haas frowning. Westbrook called 3 more expert witnesses. Each dissected Margaret's behavior, building a case of incompetence from cherry-picked evidence. Then it was Hayes's turn. Your Honor, I'd like to submit video testimony from Margaret Thornwood herself, recorded 6 months before her death. He played the video. Margaret's voice filled the courtroom strong and clear. If you're watching this in court, Victor has claimed I was mentally incompetent. Let me be clear. I'm 78 years old, I have excellent blood pressure, and I can still beat anyone at chess. I established the Thornwood Trust with full knowledge and intent because I wanted my legacy to be about community, not profit. The courtroom was silent. Your Honor, Hayes continued, not only was Margaret Thornwood fully competent, but she established this trust specifically to protect the land from illegal exploitation, and we have evidence that Mr. Victor Thornwood has been actively trying to sabotage the sanctuary through criminal means. Objection. Westbrook was on his feet. This is not a criminal trial. It's about to be, Hayes said calmly. He presented the dam sabotage evidence, the arson footage, the connection to Thornwood timber contractors. Judge Cole's expression changed from skeptical to shocked as he reviewed the evidence. Mr. Westbrook, your client has a lot to answer for, the judge said. Your Honor, these allegations are unsubstantiated. There's video evidence of men employed by your client's company committing arson on protected forest land. The FBI is investigating as we speak. Victor stood abruptly. That footage could be faked. This is a setup. Mr. Thornwood, sit down, Judge Cole commanded. I've seen enough. This court finds that Margaret Louise Thornwood was fully competent when she established the trust. The trust is valid. Miss Morrison is the legitimate trustee. This case is dismissed. The gavel came down. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the sanctuary residents who'd packed the gallery erupted in cheers. Victor's face went purple with rage. He turned to Jennifer. This isn't over. You have no idea what you've done. Yes, I do, Jen replied quietly. I protected my grandmother's legacy, and I stopped you. The FBI investigation will go nowhere. I have lawyers who'll bury it. But you're finished. The custody hearing is in 3 weeks. I'll make sure Richard gets those girls. I'll make sure you never see them again. Is that a threat? Hayes asked his phone recording. Victor realized his mistake too late. I'm simply stating facts. You're confessing to witness intimidation and conspiracy to interfere with custody proceedings. On record. Thank you. FBI agents entered the courtroom. Mr. Thornwood, we'd like to ask you some questions about the fires on Thornwood Sanctuary property. Victor's lawyers immediately surrounded him. Our client has no comment. As they left, Victor looked back at Jen. The hatred in his eyes was pure and absolute. He'd lost today, but he wasn't done fighting. Outside the courthouse, Jen collapsed onto a bench. The twins ran to her, both crying with relief. You won, Mom, Emma sobbed. You actually won. We won, Jen corrected. All of us. Richard appeared, looking shaken. Jennifer, we need to talk. Now. Victor just called me. He said if I don't push harder in the custody case, he'll expose some business dealings I was involved in. Says I'll go to prison. Jen stared at her ex-husband. What business dealings? I took consulting fees from Thornwood Timber. $50,000 over 6 months. He told me it was legitimate work marketing consultation, but it was really payment for filing the custody case for helping him gather information about you. You took bribes to try to take my children. I didn't know it was bribes. I swear I thought it was real consulting work. But now Victor's threatening me, saying he'll claim I knew all along that I was complicit in his schemes. You were complicit. I know that now, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Richard's voice cracked. I'm dropping the custody case. Tomorrow, I'll file papers saying I'm not seeking primary custody, that I agree you're the better parent. Why should I believe you? Because I'm scared. Victor Thornwood destroys people, and I don't want to be destroyed. And because you were right. About everything. The girls are happier with you. They're thriving at that sanctuary. I was selfish and stupid, and I'm done. Jen didn't trust him, but she also saw genuine fear in his eyes. File the papers, she said, then stay far away from Victor, because when he goes down, everyone near him falls too. That night at the sanctuary, they celebrated. Not wildly, but with quiet relief. The trust was secure. The FBI was investigating Victor. The custody case was falling apart, but Jen couldn't shake the feeling that Victor wasn't finished. Men like him didn't lose gracefully. She was right to worry. 3 days after the trust hearing victory, Jen woke at 5 a.m. to her phone ringing. Hayes, which meant bad news. Richard didn't file the papers, Hayes said without preamble. He lied to you. The custody hearing is still on for next week, and he just submitted new evidence claiming you're mentally unstable. Jen sat up, heart racing. What evidence? Recordings, phone calls where you allegedly threatened him, made paranoid accusations about Victor, claimed people were trying to kill you. He's painting you as delusional. Those calls weren't threats. I was warning him about Victor's criminal activity, which is now confirmed by the FBI. I know, but taken out of context, edited correctly, they sound bad. Really bad. Patricia Barnes knows what she's doing. Jen felt the victory from Monday slipping through her fingers. Victor got to him again. Worse, Victor's lawyers are now representing Richard in the custody case. Pro bono, they claim, which means Victor's directly funding the attack on your parental rights. Can they do that? Isn't that a conflict of interest? It should be. I'm filing motions. But Jennifer, you need to prepare for the possibility that this judge sees what Victor wants him to see. A woman living in an isolated compound involved in legal battles making accusations of conspiracy. Everything I've said is true. Truth doesn't always win in custody court, you know that. After hanging up, Jen couldn't go back to sleep. She made coffee and sat on the porch watching dawn break over the forest. 6 days until the custody hearing. 6 days to prove she wasn't the unstable lunatic Victor was painting her as. Sarah found her an hour later. You look like hell. Richard's going after custody again. Harder this time. I heard. Marcus told me. Sarah sat down. What do you need? A miracle, or evidence so damning that Victor can't touch me anymore. Then let's find it. Zoe's been trying to identify Source W, the whistleblower. Maybe they have more we can use. They found Zoe in the community center, surrounded by laptops and documents. She looked like she hadn't slept either. I think I know who Source W is, Zoe said without looking up. The writing style, the level of detail, the access to specific meetings. It's someone high up in Thornwood Timbers management. Who, Berisotti, Dale Parsons' assistant, woman named Rebecca Walsh. She's been with the company 12 years, worked directly under Parsons before he moved to the county commissioner position. She would have seen everything. Can we contact her? I've been trying. She's not responding to emails. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. I'm worried Victor's already gotten to her. Jen's stomach dropped. We need to find her if she's in danger. I have her address. I was thinking of driving to Portland today. I'm coming with you. They left after breakfast, telling the twins Jen had errands in the city. The drive took 90 minutes, and Jen spent most of it staring out the window, mind racing. If Rebecca Walsh was Source W, she'd risked everything to expose Victor, and if he discovered her identity, she was in serious trouble. Rebecca's apartment was in a modest complex in southeast Portland, third-floor balcony facing the parking lot. Zoe knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Ms. Walsh, my name is Zoe Martinez. I'm a journalist. I think you knew Margaret Thornwood. Nothing. We're trying to stop Victor Thornwood. We need your help. The door opened a crack chain still attached. A woman in her 40s peered out, eyes red from crying. You need to leave, now, before someone sees you here. Rebecca, please. Margaret left evidence of Victor's crimes. We think you were helping her document everything. We need to know what else you have. I don't know what you're talking about. You're Source W, Jen said. You risked everything to expose Victor's corruption. We can protect you. Rebecca's face crumpled. No, you can't. Nobody can. He knows. He figured it out 2 days ago. He called me into his office and played a recording of me talking to Margaret. He has surveillance on everything, everyone. He knows about every call, every document I copied. Then testify against him, Zoe urged. Go to the FBI. And say what? That I stole company documents, that I betrayed my employer. I'll go to prison and Victor will walk free. He always walks free. Not this time, Jen said. We beat him in court. The trust is secure. The FBI is investigating the arson. He's losing. He's not losing. He's regrouping. Rebecca opened the door wider, let them inside. The apartment was already half-packed boxes everywhere. I'm leaving. Today. My sister lives in Montana. I'm disappearing before Victor decides I'm too much of a liability. If you run, he wins, Zoe said. If I stay, I die. Rebecca pulled out her phone, showed them a text from an unknown number. Look what I received this morning. The message was simple and chilling. Accidents happen to traitors. Jen felt sick. Have you shown this to the police? Victor owns the police in this county. You think Sheriff Granger will help me? Dale Parsons is his brother-in-law. They're all connected. That's how Victor operates. He buys everyone. Then come to the sanctuary, Jen offered. Stay with us. You'll be safe there. Will I? He burned 20 acres trying to scare you. What makes you think I'd be safer there than here? Because we're watching for him now. We have security. We have the FBI investigating. And we have a community that protects each other. Rebecca looked at Jen like she was crazy. You really believe that that community can stand up to someone like Victor? I have to believe it, because the alternative is letting him win, letting him destroy everything good just because he's rich and connected and cruel. Rebecca sat down heavily on a box. Margaret believed that too. She thought exposing Victor would be enough, that truth and justice would prevail. And look what happened. She died, and Victor's still out there, still destroying lives. She didn't die in vain, Jen said quietly. She built the sanctuary. She built a place Victor can't touch, and she left evidence that will eventually bring him down. Eventually isn't soon enough, Rebecca whispered. Zoe's phone rang. She answered, face going pale. Are you sure? When? Okay. We're coming back now. She hung up. That was Marcus. There's been another incident at the sanctuary. Someone cut the main power lines. The whole community is without electricity. They drove back faster than legal Jen's heart pounding. Rebecca came with them, her packed bags in the trunk with nowhere else to go and too scared to run. The sanctuary was in chaos when they arrived. No power meant no water pumps, no refrigeration, no communication systems. Marcus and his team were working frantically to repair the damage. Professional job, Marcus said, showing Jen the cut lines. They knew exactly where to cut to cause maximum disruption, and they disabled our backup generators too. How long to fix it? 6 hours minimum, maybe 12. We need parts I don't have here. The twins found Jen both frightened. Mom, what's happening? Why does someone keep trying to hurt us? Jen knelt down. Because Victor Thornwood is a coward who attacks people who can't fight back. But we can fight back, and we will. But what if he hurts someone? Emma's voice was tiny. What if next time it's not just power lines? That was Jen's fear too. That Victor would escalate from property damage to actual violence. That someone would get hurt because of her fight to protect the sanctuary. Hayes arrived 2 hours later, grim-faced. I have news. Bad news. The custody hearing has been moved up to tomorrow. Tomorrow? That's impossible. We're not ready. Judge's orders. Richard's lawyers filed an emergency motion claiming the unstable situation at the sanctuary puts the children in immediate danger. The power outage today gave them ammunition. The power outage Victor caused. Can you prove that with witnesses, with video? Because unless you can, it just looks like infrastructure failure at an unsafe compound. Jen wanted to scream. Every time she gained ground, Victor found a way to take it back. Every victory came with a new attack. What are our chances? She asked. Hayes hesitated. Honestly, not good. The edited phone recordings make you sound paranoid. The infrastructure problems make the sanctuary look dangerous, and Richard's lawyers have character witnesses lined up. People who'll testify you're not fit to parent. What people? I barely know anyone in Portland anymore. Your ex-mother-in-law, Richard's boss. 3 of his neighbors who'll say they're concerned about the girls living in an isolated commune. They don't even know me. They know Richard, and they believe what he's telling them. Hayes sat down heavily. Jennifer, you need to consider a compromise. Maybe agree to modified custody, 50-50 again, or even 60-40. Keep some time with your daughters instead of losing them completely. No, they belong with me. Victor doesn't get to take them just because he's angry about losing the trust case. Then we fight, but I need you to understand what we're up against. This Judge Harold Matthews, he's conservative, traditional, he doesn't like alternative lifestyles. The sanctuary will seem strange to him, dangerous even. So what do I do? Tell the truth, be yourself. Show him you're a devoted mother who's providing a stable, loving home, and pray it's enough. That night, Jen lay awake listening to her daughters breathing in their bedrooms. Tomorrow a stranger would decide whether she got to keep them. A judge who didn't know her, didn't understand the sanctuary, didn't care about anything except checking boxes on a stability assessment. At midnight, Rebecca knocked on the cabin door. I can help. At the hearing, I can testify about Victor's connection to Richard's lawyers, how he's funding the whole custody case as retaliation. You'd do that. Margaret saved my life once. Years ago when my husband died and I had nothing. She gave me a job, helped me get back on my feet. I owe her, and maybe testifying is safer than running. At least this way I'm not alone. The custody hearing began at 9 a.m. in a different courthouse, smaller and more intimidating. Judge Harold Matthews was exactly what Hayes had warned. 60-something, stern, traditional. He looked at Jen like she'd already failed some invisible test. Richard's lawyer, Patricia Barnes, presented her case with devastating efficiency. The edited phone recordings where Jen sounded unhinged. Photos of the sanctuary's burned forest-damaged dam cut power lines. Testimony from Richard's mother about how worried she was about her granddaughters living in such an unstable environment. Ms. Morrison has moved her children to an isolated location with strangers. She's involved in ongoing legal battles. Her home has been repeatedly targeted by vandals. This is not a safe or stable environment for children. Richard testified next, and Jen barely recognized him. He'd perfected the concerned father act. I just want what's best for Lily and Emma. I know Jennifer loves them, but love isn't enough when they're in danger. I have a safe home, a stable job, family nearby. I can give them security. Mr. Morrison, is it true that Victor Thornwood's law firm is representing you pro bono? Hayes asked during cross-examination. Yes, they generously offered to help. And is it true you received $50,000 in consulting fees from Thornwood Timber Corporation? That was legitimate consulting work. Consulting on what exactly? Richard faltered. Marketing strategies. You're a pharmaceutical sales director. What do you know about timber marketing? I have transferable skills. Or you were paid to file this custody case as retaliation against Ms. Morrison for defending her inheritance. Objection. Patricia was on her feet. Mr. Morrison's business relationships are not relevant to his fitness as a parent. They're relevant when those relationships show a conspiracy to use the court system for revenge, Hayes countered. Judge Matthews sustained the objection, but the seed was planted. Then it was Jen's turn. She walked to the stand on shaking legs. Patricia's questions were designed to make her seem unstable. Ms. Morrison, have you accused your ex-husband of conspiring with Victor Thornwood? Yes, because he has. The evidence shows. Have you claimed people are trying to sabotage your property? Because they are. We have video footage. Have you moved your children to an isolated compound with strangers? It's not a compound. It's a community, and they're not strangers. Yes or no, answers please. Have you involved your daughters in your legal battles with Mr. Thornwood? I haven't involved them. He's attacked the place we live. Yes or no? Jen felt the trap closing. Every answer made her sound more paranoid, more unstable, exactly what Patricia wanted. Then Hayes called Rebecca Walsh to the stand. Patricia objected immediately. Your Honor, this witness was not disclosed in advance. She came forward yesterday, Hayes explained. Relevant testimony regarding Mr. Thornwood's interference in this case. I'll allow it, Judge Matthews said, but make it quick. Rebecca looked terrified, but her voice was steady. My name is Rebecca Walsh. I worked for Thornwood Timber Corporation for 12 years. I was Margaret Thornwood's confidential source documenting Victor Thornwood's illegal activities. Patricia stood. Your Honor, this is completely irrelevant. Victor Thornwood is directly funding Mr. Morrison's custody case. Rebecca continued, speaking faster. I saw the accounting records before I left the company. $300,000 paid to Westbrook and Barnes law firm specifically designated for Morrison custody proceedings. This isn't a father seeking custody. It's a corporate revenge campaign. The courtroom went silent. Do you have proof of these payments? Judge Matthews asked. Rebecca pulled out documents. I made copies before I resigned. Here's the wire transfer authorization. Here's the internal memo explaining the expense as legal fees related to protecting company interests. Hayes took the documents, presented them to the judge. Judge Matthews reviewed them, his expression unreadable. Ms. Barnes, did you know your firm's fees were being paid by Victor Thornwood? Patricia's face had gone pale. I was told Mr. Morrison retained us through a legal referral. Did you know, the judge repeated. I may have been aware of Mr. Thornwood's financial backing, yes. And you didn't think this was relevant to disclose to the court. It's not unusual for family members to help pay legal fees. Mr. Thornwood is not family. He's an adverse party in another proceeding involving Ms. Morrison. This is a clear conflict of interest. Judge Matthews looked disgusted. I'm dismissing this case. Mr. Morrison, if you want to pursue custody modification in the future, I suggest you find ethical representation. Ms. Morrison, primary custody remains with you. The gavel came down. Jen couldn't breathe. She'd won. Again. Despite everything Victor had thrown at her, she'd won. Patricia was gathering her papers, furious. Richard sat frozen, staring at nothing, and Rebecca looked like she might pass out from relief. Outside the courtroom, Richard approached. I'm sorry, I know I've said that before, but this time I mean it. Victor promised me it was just legal support. I didn't know about the money, the conspiracy, any of it. Yes, you did, Jen said quietly. Maybe not the details, but you knew something was wrong, and you went along with it because it was easier than standing up to him. You're right, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'm done with Victor. Completely done. Whatever he threatens me with, I don't care anymore. Good, because the FBI is going to want to talk to you about those consulting fees. Richard nodded, defeated. I figured. Maybe I deserve whatever's coming. Jen took the twins home to the sanctuary, where the community had organized a celebration dinner. Power was restored, repairs were underway, and they'd won both the trust case and the custody case. But Jen couldn't celebrate fully, because Victor was still out there, still dangerous, and she knew he wouldn't stop. Her intuition proved correct 2 days later. Zoe came running to the trustee cabin at 6 a.m. You need to see this, now. She pulled up a news website on her laptop. The headline made Jen's blood run cold. Local timber baron arrested on federal charges. Victor Thornwood faces multiple counts of environmental crimes, bribery, and conspiracy. The article detailed everything. The illegal logging, the chemical dumping, the bribed officials, all of it. Rebecca's testimony had given the FBI what they needed to move quickly. They'd raided Thornwood Timber's headquarters yesterday, seized records, arrested Victor at his home. He's in federal custody, Zoe said. No bail, they're calling him a flight risk. Jen read the article twice, not quite believing it. It's over. It's actually over. Not quite, there's more. Zoe pulled up another article. This one about Thornwood Timber Corporation filing for bankruptcy, about the board voting to liquidate all assets, about the company's complete collapse in the wake of Victor's arrest. They're selling everything, including the commercial property adjacent to the sanctuary. Who's buying it? That's the interesting part. The bankruptcy court is accepting bids, and Hayes thinks we should bid on it, using the trust funds. Buy Victor's land. Not just his land. All the Thornwood commercial holdings in this region, 7,000 acres total. We could create a conservation corridor, protected forest from here to the national forest boundary. Jen's mind raced. They'd started with 400 acres. Now they could protect 7,000. Turn Margaret's vision into something even bigger than she'd imagined. How much would it cost? The bankruptcy court will probably accept 10 to 15 million for the whole package. The trust has the money. Margaret's investments have grown significantly. Let's do it. Over the next week, Hayes worked with bankruptcy lawyers to structure the bid. The Sanctuary Trust offered $12 million for all of Thornwood Timber's remaining forest land, with the condition that it be permanently protected from commercial logging or mining. The bankruptcy judge approved the sale. Just like that, the forest that Victor had wanted to exploit belonged to the community he'd tried to destroy. But there was still one piece of unfinished business: Margaret's ashes. Hayes had been keeping them in his office, waiting for Jen to decide what to do with them. Now, with Victor in prison and the land secured, it felt like the right time. They gathered at the old cedar tree, the entire community, on a Saturday morning in late August. The twins helped Jen carry the simple wooden box containing their great-grandmother's ashes. Sarah spoke first. Margaret Thornwood was my friend and my patient. She was brilliant, stubborn, and absolutely dedicated to protecting this land and the people on it. She saw a world that could be better, and she built it. Not with big speeches or grand gestures, but with quiet determination and careful planning. Marcus added, she taught me that healing comes from purpose. that broken people can build beautiful things if someone gives them a chance. Zoe said, she showed me that truth matters, that documentation and evidence can defeat even the most powerful corruption. Rebecca, who decided to stay at the sanctuary permanently, said simply, she saved my life, twice. Then it was Jen's turn. She opened the box, the twins beside her. Grandma Margaret, I didn't understand the $2. I thought you'd forgotten me, rejected me, dismissed me as a failure. But you were teaching me, testing me, preparing me. She scattered some ashes at the base of the cedar. You built something extraordinary. You saw potential in people everyone else had given up on. You turned $2 into a fortune, 2 coins into keys, and a forest into a home for dozens of families. Emma stepped forward. We never met you, great-grandma, but we know you now, through this place, through Mom, through everyone here. Thank you for protecting her, for protecting all of us. Lily added, and thank you for the treehouse library. It's awesome. They finished scattering the ashes, letting the wind carry them into the forest Margaret had loved and protected. As they walked back to the community center for lunch, Hayes pulled Jen aside. There's one more thing. Something Margaret left for you that I was supposed to give you only after everything was settled. He handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter in Margaret's handwriting dated 3 months before her death. My dearest Jennifer, if you're reading this, you've won. You've protected the sanctuary, defeated Victor, and proven you're everything I always knew you were. Strong, brave, brilliant. The $2 were never an insult. They were a reminder. That value isn't measured in money. That the smallest investment in the right person in the right cause can grow into something extraordinary. You started with 2 coins. You built an empire. Not an empire of wealth, but of community, of purpose, of love. Victor wanted to turn this forest into profit. You turned it into home. That's the difference between us and people like him. We build. They destroy. We nurture. They exploit. We see value in human beings. They see value only in dollars. You've created something that will outlast us all, something that will provide healing and hope for generations. I'm so proud of you, my darling girl, prouder than I ever knew how to say when I was alive. The sanctuary is yours now. Protect it, grow it, let it become everything it can be. And remember, $2 bought a forest, but love built a home. Forever proud, Grandmother Margaret. Jen folded the letter carefully, tears streaming down her face. Around her, the community lived and laughed and thrived. The twins played with other children. Sarah tended her medical clinic. Marcus maintained the power systems. Zoe documented everything for her book about Margaret's legacy. And Jen stood at the center of it all, no longer the defeated woman who'd laughed at a $2 inheritance. She was the trustee, the protector, the keeper of Margaret's vision. She was home. 2 months after scattering Margaret's ashes, Jen received a letter from the Oregon State Penitentiary. From Victor. She stared at the envelope for a full minute before opening it. Hayes stood beside her in the trustee cabin, ready to witness whatever threat or manipulation Victor had crafted from behind bars. The letter was handwritten Victor's normally perfect script, now jagged and uneven. Jennifer, I'm writing to you because my lawyers have advised against it, which means it's probably the first honest thing I've done in years. I'm looking at 15 years minimum. My company is gone. My reputation is destroyed. Everything I built has collapsed. And the worst part? You were right. About all of it. Margaret wasn't senile. She was brilliant. She saw what I was becoming, and she stopped me the only way she could, by giving someone else the power to protect what I wanted to destroy. I hated you for that. I still hate you if I'm being honest, but I also understand now. You didn't steal my inheritance. I forfeited it through my own choices. This isn't an apology. I'm not capable of that yet. But it's an acknowledgement. You won. Fair and square. And the sanctuary is safer in your hands than it ever would have been in mine. Tell Margaret's ghost I finally learned the lesson. Value isn't measured in dollars. Victor Thornwood. Jen folded the letter slowly. He sounds almost human. 15 years in federal prison tends to humble people, Hayes observed. Though I wouldn't trust him completely. Leopards don't change their spots overnight. I don't trust him, but maybe this means he won't keep fighting from prison. His lawyers have already exhausted their appeals. The conviction is solid. He's not getting out early. Hayes paused. But Jennifer, there is something else, something I've been hesitant to bring up. Jen's stomach tightened. What now? The Thornwood family estate, the mansion where the will was read. It's going to auction next month as part of the bankruptcy proceedings. And there's something inside it you should know about. I don't want Victor's house. It's not about the house. It's about what's in the library, Margaret's personal papers, her journals, letters, research, 40 years of documentation. The bankruptcy trustee is going to sell everything as a lot unless someone claims it first. Jen thought about Margaret's journals, the grandmother she'd barely known, the woman whose vision had changed her life. We have to get them. The auction starts at $500,000 for the estate and contents. That's ridiculous. It's just an old house. It's a historic property on 3 acres in an expensive neighborhood. The land alone is worth more than that. But if you want Margaret's papers, you'll have to bid on the whole package. Jen made a decision she hoped wasn't insane. Do it. Bid whatever it takes to get those journals. The auction happened on a rainy Tuesday in October. Jen attended via phone, her stomach churning as the bids climbed. 600,000, 700, 800. At 900,000, the other bidders dropped out. The Thornwood estate belonged to the Sanctuary Trust. Jen stood in the mansion's library 3 days later, surrounded by decades of Margaret's life. Leather-bound journals lined the shelves. Boxes of correspondence. Research files on sustainable communities, forest management, environmental law. The twins explored the house with wonder. "Mom, there's like 15 bedrooms," Lily called from upstairs. "What are we going to do with this place?" Jen had been thinking about that. What if we turn it into a training center, a place where people from other communities can come learn about sustainable living, forest management, community building? Sarah, who'd come along to help sort through papers, smiled. Margaret would love that. Taking the symbol of Thornwood family wealth and turning it into an educational resource. "We could offer workshops," Rebecca added. She'd become the sanctuary's unofficial historian, documenting everything. Teach people how to start their own communities. Share what we've learned. The Margaret Thornwood Institute for Sustainable Community Development, Zoe suggested, has a nice ring to it. They spent weeks sorting through Margaret's papers, and with each journal Jen read, she understood her grandmother better. Margaret hadn't been cold or distant during those silent years. She'd been planning, building, preparing. One journal entry from 4 years ago stopped Jen cold. Jennifer called again today. She sounded tired, defeated. "My heart breaks hearing her struggle, but I can't help her yet. If I reach out now, if I give her money or support, she'll never develop the strength she needs for what's coming. Victor will challenge everything I build. Only someone who's been broken and rebuilt themselves can withstand that pressure. Only someone who knows how to fight from nothing can protect this legacy. So I stay silent even though it kills me, even though I want to call her back and tell her I love her and I'm preparing something extraordinary for her. I stay silent because love sometimes means letting someone find their own strength." Jen's tears fell on the page. Margaret had loved her, had been protecting her all along in the cruelest, kindest way possible. Emma found her crying in the library. "Mom, you okay?" "I'm perfect, sweetie. Just reading about your great-grandmother. She was remarkable. She must have been pretty cool if she built all this just so you could have it." "She built it so everyone could have it. I'm just the keeper." The Margaret Thornwood Institute opened in January, 6 months after Victor's arrest. The first workshop attracted 30 people from 7 states, all interested in learning about sustainable community development. They spent a week at the sanctuary learning from residents, studying Margaret's methods, understanding how to build something lasting. Jen stood before the group on the first day, nervous despite herself. Public speaking had never been her strength, but she thought about Margaret, about the courage it took to build something from nothing, and found her voice. 6 months ago, I was a cafeteria worker living in a converted garage with my 2 daughters. I received a $2 inheritance from my grandmother and thought it was an insult, but those $2 were keys. They unlocked a gate, yes, but more importantly, they unlocked possibility. She held up the framed coins now mounted in the Institute's entrance hall. These coins taught me that value isn't in the metal or the denomination, it's in what we choose to build. My grandmother took timber profits and built a sanctuary. She took corporate greed and turned it into community resources. She took one woman's vision and created a model that can be replicated anywhere. That's why you're here. Not to copy what we've done, but to learn the principles so you can create something similar in your own communities. Sustainable living isn't about going back to some primitive past. It's about moving forward intelligently, balancing human needs with environmental protection. The workshop was exhausting but exhilarating. By the end of the week, 3 groups had concrete plans to start their own communities. 2 more were working on converting existing properties. The ripple effect Margaret had envisioned was beginning, but not everything was smooth. In March, Jen received disturbing news from Hayes. Victor's appealing his sentence. His new lawyers are arguing that the evidence was obtained illegally, that Rebecca's testimony should have been excluded, that the whole prosecution was tainted. Can they overturn the conviction? It's unlikely, but they might reduce his sentence, get him out in 8 years instead of 15. Still better than nothing. Jennifer, there's more. They're also suing the Sanctuary Trust, claiming the land purchase from the bankruptcy estate was fraudulent, that you had insider information, that the whole thing should be voided. Jen's blood ran cold. They can't do that. The bankruptcy judge approved the sale. They're arguing the judge was misled. It's a long shot, but Victor's lawyers are good. They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. So we fight again. Always, but I want you prepared. This could drag on for years. The lawsuit became a dark cloud hanging over the sanctuary. Residents worried about losing their homes again. The expansion plans for new communities slowed as potential partners grew nervous about legal complications. Jen tried to stay positive, but the stress was crushing. She woke at 3 a.m. most nights, mind racing through worst-case scenarios. What if they lost the land? What if Victor's lawyers found some technicality? Richard surprisingly became an unexpected ally. He'd been cooperating with federal prosecutors testifying about Victor's bribery scheme. In exchange for his testimony, he'd received immunity from prosecution. Now he visited the sanctuary regularly, not as an adversary, but as the twins' father trying to do better. I talked to the FBI agents working Victor's case, Richard said during one visit. They said his new appeal is basically frivolous, just his lawyers trying to earn their fees. Hayes said the same thing, but I can't shake the feeling that Victor's still dangerous, even from prison. He is, I've learned that, but he's also alone now. No company, no money, no allies. His lawyers are working on contingency, hoping to get a piece of any settlement. They'll give up when they realize there's nothing to gain. I hope you're right. Richard looked around the sanctuary at the thriving community, the happy children. You built something amazing here. I was too stupid to see it before. I'm sorry I fought you. You were being manipulated. I was being greedy. There's a difference. Victor promised me consulting contracts, business opportunities. I saw dollar signs, and I let that matter more than my daughter's happiness. But you're here now. That counts for something. I want to help, financially, the institute, the expansion plans, whatever you need. I have money from the pharmaceutical job. Let me invest in something that actually matters. Jen studied her ex-husband. He looked different now, less polished, more genuine. I'll talk to Hayes about setting up a donation structure. Thank you. And Jen, I know I don't deserve to say this, but I'm proud of you, what you've accomplished. Margaret chose the right heir. The lawsuit ground through the courts for 8 months. Victor's lawyers filed motion after motion, each one more desperate than the last. The Sanctuary Trust fought back with overwhelming evidence of legal land purchase, proper procedures. Transparent bidding. In November, the judge issued his ruling. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, meaning Victor couldn't refile. The land sale was valid. The sanctuary was secure. That night, the community celebrated like never before. Someone brought instruments. There was dancing, singing food from everyone's gardens. The twins stayed up past midnight, caught up in the joy. Jen stood apart, watching, feeling the weight of the past year finally lifting. Margaret had given her $2 and a mountain of responsibility, but she'd also given her a community, a purpose, a future. She knew you could do it. Sarah appeared beside her, 2 glasses of wine in hand. Margaret told me once that you were stronger than you believed. That adversity would forge you into exactly the leader the sanctuary needed. I don't feel like a leader. I feel like I'm making it up as I go. That's what good leaders do. They adapt, they learn, they surround themselves with good people and trust them to help carry the load. Did Margaret really talk about me? All the time, especially in her last year. She showed me photos of you as a child, told me stories about your drawings, your dreams. She said you had the biggest heart of anyone in the family. That's why Victor hated you. He saw you as weak. But Margaret saw your kindness as strength. Tears stung Jen's eyes. I wish I'd known her better. You know her now, through this place, through every person she saved by creating it, through the communities that will form because of the Institute. You're living her legacy every day. By the end of the year, 3 new communities had opened using the sanctuary model. One in Northern California, one in Washington State, one in rural Montana. Combined, they housed 73 families. The Margaret Thornwood Institute had trained over 200 people in sustainable community development. Jen's stipend from the trust remained $12,000 monthly, but she barely touched it. She donated most of it back into expansion funds. The trustee cabin had everything she needed. The community provided food, friendship, purpose. Money, she'd learned, was just a tool, not the goal. The twins were thriving in ways Jen had never imagined. Emma had developed a passion for emergency medicine, apprenticing with Sarah. She talked about becoming a doctor someday, serving rural communities. Lily had built her own solar panel system and was teaching other kids about renewable energy. Both girls were confident, capable, grounded. "Mom," Lily said one evening in December, "Kazia's mom asked me something weird today." "What's that?" "She asked if we're rich now, because of the inheritance and the trust and everything." "What did you tell her?" Lily shrugged. "I said we're comfortable, we have enough, but we're not rich like mansion and yacht rich." "That's accurate." But then Emma said something smart. She said we're rich in different ways, like we have community and purpose and people who care about us, and that's worth more than money. Jen pulled both girls into a hug. "When did you two get so wise?" "We learned from you," Emma said simply. In January, exactly 1 year after the Institute's first workshop, Jen stood in the mansion library looking at a framed photograph. It showed Margaret at age 40 standing in front of an old-growth cedar, her expression determined and fierce. Hayes had found the photo in one of the archive boxes. Now it hung beside the framed $2 coins, a reminder of where everything started. "I found something else," Hayes said, entering the library. "Final box from Margaret's safe deposit box. The bank just released it." Inside was a letter addressed to Jen, dated 1 week before Margaret's death. "My dearest Jennifer, if you're reading this, you've survived the first year. You've beaten Victor, protected the sanctuary, and begun expanding the vision. I knew you could. Now comes the harder part. Maintaining what you've built. Growing it wisely. Staying true to the principles even when it's easier to compromise. Victor represented everything wrong with our economic system. Profit over people. Exploitation over stewardship. Short-term gain over long-term sustainability. You represent something different, something better. But beware. The world will pressure you to compromise. To monetize the sanctuary. To accept corporate sponsorships. To turn this vision into something palatable to the mainstream. Don't. Stay weird. Stay idealistic. Stay committed to the idea that another world is possible. Let the sanctuary be proof that communities can thrive without exploitation, that people can live well while protecting the environment, that there's an alternative to the rat race. You started with $2 because I wanted you to understand what really matters isn't money, it's what we build together, the relationships we nurture, the systems we create, the future we protect. Those 2 coins unlocked everything, but you were always the real key. Your compassion, your resilience, your refusal to give up even when everything looked hopeless. I'm so proud of you, my darling girl. Not just for what you've accomplished, but for who you've become. Keep building, keep protecting, keep expanding the vision. The world needs more sanctuaries, and you're the perfect person to create them. With eternal love and unshakable faith, Grandmother Margaret. P.S. The best investment I ever made wasn't in real estate or stocks. It was in believing in you. $2 to unlock a granddaughter's potential. Infinite returns. Jen read the letter 3 times, each time finding new layers of meaning. Margaret hadn't just given her property or money, she'd given her purpose, mission, a way to matter. She walked through the mansion thinking about the year that had passed. The terror of the will reading felt like a lifetime ago. The woman who'd laughed bitterly at a $2 inheritance didn't exist anymore. She'd been transformed by struggle, by community, by the gradual understanding of what Margaret had really given her. The twins found her in the mansion gardens where volunteers had planted native species. "Mom, Rebecca wants to show you something," Emma said. They walked back to the sanctuary where Rebecca had set up a display in the community center. Photos from the past year. The trust hearing, the custody victory, the Institute's opening, the new communities forming. "I'm compiling a history," Rebecca explained, "so future generations understand how this started, how Margaret planned it, how you fought for it, how we all built it together." The display ended with a photo of the framed $2 coins and a simple caption, "How it all began." That night, Jen held a community meeting to discuss the future. 72 residents now called the sanctuary home. 3 more families were joining next month. "We're at capacity with current infrastructure," Marcus reported. "If we want to keep growing, we need to expand. Build more cabins, increase water and power systems." "We have the funds," Jen said. "Margaret's investments have continued growing. The trust can support expansion." "But should we?" Elena Kowalski asked. "Maybe we should stay small. Keep the community intimate." "Or maybe we should create satellite sanctuaries," Zoe suggested. "Smaller communities within 20 miles, connected but independent." They debated for 2 hours, everyone contributing, no single voice dominating. This was Margaret's vision in action. Not a hierarchy, but a collaboration. Not a leader dictating, but a community deciding together. Finally, they agreed. The original sanctuary would cap at 100 residents. New sanctuaries would be established within the expanded 7,000-acre forest preserve. Each community would have autonomy while sharing resources and philosophy. "We're not building an empire," Jen said. "We're nurturing a network. Each sanctuary supporting the others, learning from each other, growing together." "Like Margaret wanted," Sarah added. In March, the second sanctuary broke ground. Named the Elias Thornwood community after Margaret's husband, it would focus on veterans and their families. Marcus would oversee construction. Sarah was training new medical staff. The Institute would provide ongoing education and support. Jen stood at the construction site watching volunteers clear land for the first cabins. Richard was there, working alongside everyone else, no longer the polished executive, but a man trying to rebuild himself through service. "You know what's wild?" Lily said, appearing beside Jen with dirt on her face and satisfaction in her eyes. She'd been helping install solar panels. "Great-Grandma Margaret died thinking you'd gotten $2, but really you got everything, and then you turned it into even more. She knew I'd figure it out. Do you think she's watching, like seeing all this? I think if there's anything after death she's celebrating, this is exactly what she wanted." Emma joined them, carrying a sapling cedar to be planted. "We should plant a tree for her, at each sanctuary, so she's part of all of them." They planted the cedar that afternoon. All 72 original sanctuary residents gathered. As Jen patted soil around the roots, she thought about Margaret's ashes scattered months ago, now part of the forest. About the 2 coins that had unlocked everything. About the journey from cafeteria worker to trustee to keeper of a legacy that was growing beyond anything she'd imagined. "Thank you," Jen whispered to the tree, to Margaret's memory, to the grandmother who'd seen potential where everyone else saw failure. By summer, 4 sanctuaries were operational, housing 218 people total. The Institute had trained over 600 people. Communities were forming in Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, even as far as Vermont. The model worked. People hungry for alternative ways of living, for communities built on cooperation instead of competition, for lives connected to nature and purpose. Jen received a letter from the governor congratulating her on the environmental and social impact of the sanctuary network. She received speaking invitations from universities, environmental organizations, social justice groups. She turned most of them down, preferring to stay at the sanctuary doing the daily work of community building. But she accepted one invitation, from the Federal Bureau of Prisons, to speak to inmates about environmental restoration and community rehabilitation. She stood in a prison classroom looking at 20 men serving time for various crimes and told them about second chances. "I was written off, by my family, by my ex-husband, by society. I was just a broke single mom with no prospects. But someone believed in me, gave me tools and opportunity, and it changed everything." One inmate raised his hand. "How do we get that chance? Who's going to believe in us?" "You have to believe in yourselves first. When you get out, if you want, there's a place for you. The sanctuaries accept people with criminal records. We've had former addicts, former inmates, former everything. What matters isn't what you've done, it's what you're willing to build." After the talk, a guard approached her. "Victor Thornwood is housed in this facility, cell block C. He requested to speak with you, but his lawyers advised against it. Just thought you should know he's here." Jen's stomach churned. She hadn't seen Victor since the courtroom. Part of her wanted to walk away to let him rot in prison without acknowledgement. But another part, the part that Margaret had nurtured, believed in facing things directly. "I'll see him. 5 minutes." They brought Victor to a small meeting room, wrists shackled, dressed in orange. He'd lost weight, gained gray hair, looked older than his years. "You came," he said, sitting across from her. 5 minutes. Say what you need to say." "I don't even know where to start. Sorry seems inadequate, but I am sorry. For trying to destroy me, for sabotaging the sanctuary, for using my daughters as weapons. For all of it, for being the person I became, for forgetting that some things matter more than money." He looked at his shackled hands. "I had everything. Power, wealth, influence, and I used it to make the world worse, while Margaret used what she had to make it better." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because in here, you have a lot of time to think, and I've been thinking about what you said at the trust hearing. That Margaret left me money because that's all I understood. That she left you purpose because that's what you needed. She was right. I never understood anything but acquisition. More money, more land, more power, but it was hollow, every bit of it. Is there a point to this?" The point is, you won, not just legally. You won the real battle. You built something meaningful while I built nothing but destruction. And I wanted to say that face to face. You were right. Margaret was right. And I was wrong about everything. Jen stood. I hope you figure out who you want to be in the next 14 years, Victor. Because the man you were, nobody needs him. She walked out without looking back. On the drive home, she thought about Victor's words. How wealth and power had consumed him until there was nothing left but greed. How differently Margaret had used her resources. How those 2 coins represented a choice between 2 philosophies of living. The sanctuary came into view as she crested the ridge, the gate with its 2 coin-shaped locks, the forest beyond the smoke rising from community dinners, the laughter of children playing the hum of sustainable living in action. This was the inheritance. Not money or land or power, but this. Community, purpose, hope. Jen inserted the 2 coins into the gate locks now worn smooth from daily use. Click, the gate swung open. She drove through home at last thinking about the journey from mockery to meaning. About a $2 inheritance that had purchased a forest built, a movement changed hundreds of lives. The twins ran to meet her, both talking at once about their day. Sarah waved from the medical clinic. Marcus was working on a new water system. Zoe was interviewing new residents for her book. Rebecca was updating the historical archives. Everyone busy, everyone purposeful, everyone building something that mattered. Jen stood in the center of it all. Guardian of Margaret's vision, trustee of a legacy that grew larger every day, mother to daughters who understood that wealth meant something different than she'd once believed. The 2 coins hung framed in the community center, gleaming under soft light, a reminder that value isn't measured in dollars, but in what we choose to build from whatever we're given. Margaret had given her $2 and a test. Jen had turned it into a sanctuary. And from that sanctuary, a movement. And from that movement, hope for a different way of living. She'd started with nothing and built everything. Not because she was special, but because someone believed in her enough to give her the tools and step back. Because community mattered more than competition. Because legacy wasn't about hoarding wealth, but multiplying it through generosity. The $2 inheritance had taught her the most valuable lesson anyone could learn. True wealth isn't what you keep, but what you give away and watch grow.